Hello and welcome to episode 61 of the Arena Regulars podcast. I'm Zach,
And I'm Jeff.
and we're your source for weekly Drunken Magic the Gathering arena content.
Yeah, basically, we're regular dudes drinking regular beer, and we're talking about Magic, in particular, the online client MTG Arena.
Yeah, and today is my favorite episode. I know I say this like every week, but we're doing a Drunken Vorthos. This is Kamigawa Myths and Legends. Basically, Vorthos is like the lore. So we're talking all about the Magic story today, but it wouldn't be a Drunken Vorthos episode without being a Silver series.
That's right. So, longtime fans know that here on the Arena Regulars, we rate our beers on a scale of bronze to mythic, just like the tiers in Arena.
Oh.
And on that scale, silver happens to represent macro brews. So, these are kind of the generic brews that are replaceable. And so, when we say a silver series, we got to pit 4 well-known beers against each other and then rank those from Silver 4 up to Silver 1, which you might notice are also indicative of tiers in Arena.
Ooh.
So as always, anyone obviously understands, Silver 4 is the worst and Silver 1 is the best.
Makes sense. I think that makes sense.
Lower number is better.
Perfect.
It's like golf. So with that, what's on tap?
All right, so the first beer is going to be Stiegel. This is their Gold Brow. Gold Brow? Yeah, that's how you say that word.
100%. You
Pretty
said that
sure.
right, and we're actually not going to mispronounce anything in this podcast, this episode. That's for
No,
sure.
no. Specifically, yeah, this one's the easiest one. Everything's really easy to pronounce. But anyway, so this is a lager from Austria. It's 5.1%, and this beer started in 1492.
Wowza.
So we got an old one with the Silver Series. We like to go oldest to newest. So starting off with a oldie but a goodie, or oldie, I guess. I don't know if it's good. We'll have to see.
Yeah. And this isn't even the oldest one we've done, but whenever we do these European beers, they go way back.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know. It was Christ drinking this. I don't know. Anyway, Magic news. Before we get started, we have the double feature on Arena is coming from January 28th to February 10th, which this product seemed to be really exciting at first. It's a draft format where the packs have both Midnight Hunt and Crimson Vow cards in them. I'm pretty sure it's a even 50-50 split, and each pack has 2 rares in it. And all the cards are like black and white. But it had some controversy because it seemed like it was going to be a cool curated set, when in fact I believe that it's just both full sets smashed together.
Right.
So maybe not as exciting, but on Arena it does look pretty good.
And you get twice as many Bramble armors this way, so.
Sick. And whatever that wolf is called.
Yeah, it seems like a cool way to kind of bid adieu to the Innistrad pair of sets is a cool way to draft them both at the same time. I had fun with the double sealed event during the decathlon. That was more fun than I thought it was going to be. So I'd be willing to give this a shot. I'm curious how bomb-centric it's going to be because you have all the rares from Crimson Vow, but it's kind of watered down with the rares from Midnight Hunt. But you get 2 a pack, so that it's like, I don't even know. What's this going to be like?
Yeah, so we'll have to see. I guess you still get the same rate of like Crimson Vow bombs as you normally would in a Crimson Vow draft. So
Maybe. I don't know what the distribution is between the 2 sets, if there's more rares in one or whatever, but
you're
probably
right.
about the same.
Yeah. But anyway, the prize structure, the entry fee is a normal one for a premier draft, but the prizes are a little bit skewed because when you join, you get a free Dracula card style. I guess it's not free; it's part of you're paying for it. But
You are paying for it because the prizes are worse. So you're
Yes.
paying on average 100 gems or something for it because the prizes are all shifted down by 100 or 200 gems.
yep.
I think maybe just straight 100 actually.
Yeah, I think it's something like that. But in any case, seems like a good time. Got a fun thing to do before Neon Dynasty comes out. But you know what is another fun thing to do before Neon Dynasty comes out?
What's that?
It's talk about what happened last time we were at Kamigawa.
And since last time.
Yeah, you're right. So, boy, it has been a long time since we've been there. Things happened in that block and after it into, the 1200 years that we're in now. We're going to go to this new Kamigawa 1200 years after we were there. So we're going to get you caught up right now. Let's start it off, Jeff. What's where do we start?
Maybe we could just start explaining a little bit about Kamigawa in the first place. Like, who are the Kami and who are the people that inhabit this plane? Yeah, exactly. Who are the Kami? Who are the Gawa?
I'm going to call all the people on the plane Gawa now from now on.
Yeah.
I'm sure that it means something else. I did not look that up. But so if you're not familiar, Kamigawa is a Japanese feudal-inspired plane. So it has a lot of the same architecture and art style, as well as like samurai and ninja and all these kinds of different characters. And the Kami are basically the spirits that live in their spirit realm, which is like a separate place. But they do happen to influence the Gawa, as we're going to call them, on the plane. But they do have a very distinct two separate worlds.
Yeah, I remember the Kami spirit realm is Kakariko. Kakariko, because it always makes me think of Kakariko Village from The Legend
That's
of Zelda.
what I was going to say.
Yeah, so I remembered that it was close to that, but not that.
But not that.
Which I just loved, because they were like, they literally just named this after like a chicken rooster's cry or whatever.
Yeah.
We got roosters here?
Yeah,
We're called Kakariko Village.
So anyway, of all the different people that live on the plane, there's a bunch of different races. We go into more depth on this a couple episodes ago, so check that out if you're interested in hearing more about that. But basically, we have like humans and Nezubi, which are the rats. There's some moon folk and like snakes and stuff.
Exactly, yeah. We kind of explained last time that there's a little bit of like weirdo tribal going on in this set, where they gave a lot of tribes that didn't traditionally have like a lot of members their own time in the sun. So you had like rat tribal and snake tribal that wasn't really a thing before. I think the most normal things here are humans and goblins relative to like Magic's other planes.
Exactly. Also, because the snakes in this on this plane have legs and 4 arms, so a bit of controversy at the time, actually, that that they actually have legs.
So I actually think that they don't have legs anymore. They had legs in original Kamigawa, and by the time we get to modern day or the 12,000 years, like I don't think they have legs in Neon Dynasty.
Yeah, which we'll also talk about a little bit later in this episode. But anyway, so the main story revolves around this Kami War that we're in the middle of when we go to the plane. So all of Kamigawa block originally, they're in the Kami War, and it kind of ends in Saviors. And it revolves around a Ganjo, which is the city or the fortress, I guess, where Lord Konda lives.
Yeah, and you'll remember Lord Konda from last time we talked about Kamigawa, as well as the 2-2 Bushido 5 indestructible guy that you were kind of making fun of a bit.
All right, he's a 3/3. Okay, he's a 3/3.
All right, my bad.
He is a 7-drop 3/3. But basically, as every ruler of the land has, he has a bunch of these advisors. And now the smartest people on Kamigawa happen to be the moon folk. They're like these wizards and stuff. And
Soratami.
Yes, the Soratami. And as your advisors do, they have other plans and they want to stab you in the back.
They're always scheming.
It's like Game of Thrones, kind of.
A
little bit here.
The Witcher with like the sorceresses and those people.
Yeah.
Always scheming.
Always scheming. So the ones who are scheming the most are Maloku, who is like this big Soratami advisor, and Mochi, who is like the Kami of the Crescent Moon. With like, if you've ever seen that card, he's the one that makes everyone draw more cards. But he has a very mischievous little grin, and I think he's like original. What's his face? Freaking Oko. So he's like a trickster. He's just going around trying to fuck things up. And basically they both hatch this plan that they're like, oh, let's convince Lord Konda that the only way that he can continue ruling and be awesome forever is if he's immortal. because the kami are immortal. They live forever. And anyway, so Moloku and Mochi are like, okay, sweet. Let's convince Konda he needs to live forever. And Mochi's a kami, so he teaches Konda how to get to the spirit realm. And Konda goes to Okagachi, who's like the king kami, I guess.
Big boss kami.
Big boss kami. A lot of snake heads. And essentially, Konda steals Okagachi's child, which is the thing that makes Okagachi indestructible. And Konda goes back to the regular plane, and he hides it in Iganjo, and he's like, sick, now I have this sweet thing, and I'm going to live forever. And that's why he is indestructible.
Right. And so Okagachi, by the way, is like a big-ass dragon with all these snake heads kind of coming out. He's pretty terrifying. And he's growing, I guess, is it inside him? I'm not totally sure, but he's growing essentially his successor. Mm-hmm. So in a much more literal way than like humans do, where it's like the heir to the throne eventually takes over. He's like, well, once I'm done, this thing will be born and be the new kami god.
Yeah.
And so he's kind of building this thing to take over after him.
Yeah. And what happens actually is that when Konda goes and steals this thing, it's called It That Was Taken, I believe. Mm-hmm. And it's like this big, it's kind of in a stone disc that he kind of keeps it trapped in Iganjo. But when he comes back, the same day he stole this thing, his wife ends up bearing a child who is his heir to the throne, which is Michiko.
Right.
That may be important later. The timing might be important. We'll have to find out.
Same day.
Same day.
Clink and ink.
We'll see. But yeah, because of this, obviously Okagachi's like, fuck all y'all. And then all the kami are in like this.
He's displeased, let's put it that way.
Yeah. But because of, I don't know, some spirit or something. I don't actually know why Okagachi can't get to the regular plane and take it back because of some spell or something in Iganjo that's like stopping him. I don't really know why that works, but he seems to be the most powerful kami. I don't know why he can't do that, but for whatever reason, he can't. And this war lasts like 20 years.
Yeah, he basically tells all his kami, like, yo, fuck this, go mess up the mortals. And so they jump through to the other plane, and they just start just killing everybody, basically, because they're immortal, right? So they're like close to gods in this in this culture. Like, there were a lot of them that were actually worshipped as gods and are now turning on everyone. Basically all of the Gawa, the mortals. Mm-hmm. And so basically it just, I get this impression of like Konda up in his castle with his like disc, his precious, and all of his subjects are just getting massacred right outside his castle. And he just doesn't care.
And the best thing is that he pretends like he doesn't know what's happening.
Right. He's like, why are they doing this?
No, and everyone's like, oh my god.
I have no idea. As he runs over with this stupid that which was taken or whatever.
You're like, isn't that like a kami embryo thing? Like what is
it's
that?
Pretty obvious what it is from the art of the card, man.
Yeah, like, that's a thing. But through this time, Michiko becomes of like age, basically. So she's like 19, 20. And this is where we are kind of dropped into at Champions of Kamigawa. This is like these moments of Michiko is finally trying to help all the people in the land because she's like, we need to put an end to this war.
She doesn't like that her people are dying for some reason.
Which, you know...
It upsets her.
You know, why would you care about that? That's dumb.
Yeah, who cares? Your dad's immortal. What does it matter?
Ugh, just terrible. But now the story kind of brings us to a very well-known character, someone we had talked a little bit about before. Which, Jeff, do you want to talk about this character?
All right, so of course we're talking about Toshiro Umezawa. You may know him from his jite, very famous for wielding a jite. But he's basically a mobster, essentially. Like, he's an assassin / thief for hire in the criminal underworld. He's an outlaw, I guess, is the word for him.
Yeah, I guess so.
And so he's basically just getting into a whole bunch of different escapades. When you deal in danger, that's what happens, and he's basically only ever cares about himself. That's his like most defining quality, is that even when he's making a deal with some other entity, whether for good or for bad, seemingly, it's always just, can it help him in some way?
Wait, I mean, it kind of makes sense that, if you grew up in a place where, his surroundings kind of shaped him. Not that he's like a good guy. He's not really a good guy. He's very much an anti-hero in our story. But it kind of, they kind of hint at the fact that, maybe it wasn't completely his fault that he's this way.
Yeah. But I mean, like, sometimes the criminal underworld is shown to have this kind of honor among thieves thing where you don't go against one of your own. He doesn't have any of that. He doesn't care about that.
I don't think he has his own. He's just himself. He's by himself. So he's like, I'm number one and everybody else can be cut.
Right. He's a singleton. So he never goes against himself.
Yeah. And basically through this, to your point, so Jeff was talking about how some of the kami are seen as gods and they're worshipped. Some of the kami are these giant myojins. Is that how you say that word? Myojin?
I don't know. I always said myojin, but
it could be myojin.
I was pretty young when I read that card.
There are a lot of cards I read when I was very young and thought that the name was something for a long time. Anyway,
yeah.
So we'll just say myojin because that's easy. So I think that's what I used to say. So the myojin are these giant creatures, one of every color, and they kind of they get worshipped by the people of their land, essentially. And Toshiro Umezawa is basically worships the myojin of Knight's Reach, who seems to be the most important one in our story.
Yeah, I think he like fights the red one at some point or something, or escapes from the red one. But then none of the other ones actually appear.
I think he banishes the green one somehow. He like beats it. He like pushes it to like anyway, we might get to that at some point, but
he does a lot of stuff, so it's hard to list all the random side stuff that he does, but
and most of it isn't extremely important, but
exactly, yeah. He accomplishes a lot of side quests. You all know those types of guys. It's like, oh, I have 5 minutes to find the princess and save her, but this guy lost his watch.
Yeah.
I'm going to go look for that.
I'm going to find that. And then that brings you onto a bunch of other side quests. But luckily for Toshiro, all these side quests are easily accomplished because, so the Myojin of Knight's Reach wants the Kami War to continue because it has it's basically benefiting from all the Kami going crazy. And this war for 20 years, this Myojin was like, oh my God, I think planeswalk, basically. Like, it learns how to cross planes. And it's like, oh, this is pretty fucking sick. Okay, I like that I can do this. I want to keep doing this. And so Toshiro's here, and the Myojin was like, all right, well, I'm going to give you a cool power and some abilities, and you keep the war going, and I'm going to do my stuff. Which Toshiro's like, sick. Okay, I'll do that. And the power, Jeff, what's the power? What?
The power that he gets from the Myojin.
It's so Toshiro can travel through places on Kamigawa.
Through the shadows. Yeah.
The shadows around, which number one, really great if you're trying to complete your side quests. But number two, that's like the fucking coolest thing ever. Now, when I was a kid, I bought the Fat Pack and I had the book with Toshiro on the front. And that's the only thing I really got out of the whole book was that he could travel through shadows. And I thought that was the fucking coolest thing.
It's pretty badass.
It's pretty badass. Really helpful when you're an outlaw and you like stealing things because most of the time you steal stuff when there's shadows around.
And then his card, like, recasts instants or something when it just like made no sense, but
I think he also he can like cast spells by like I think he can draw characters like with his jite he can like draw in the air and then like cast spells. I don't really know how that works with his card. It loosely...
His card makes it sound like because it's basically what his card does is when a creature that your opponent controls dies, you get to recast an instant. So it sounds like he's using that creature's energy to cast his spells sometimes, but that's just not really what he does.
He's a little bit of a weird card because he's a mono black samurai with Vegito that's like spells matters, and it's a little strange. I guess like if you just keep casting your removal spells, I don't know, so he can attack you for whatever 1 or 2.
I guess that's the idea. You just chain removal spells
so that you can
that's super fun.
hit in with the barely any damage.
Doomblade.
I mean, he's really good with Umezawa's Jitte, so
yeah, but what is it?
exactly. Oh. Oh man.
Yeah, I forgot about that. That like the Myojin gave him his shadow power. I thought he was just like good at that, but no, you're right. He actually got that from the Myojin of Knight's Reach.
Yeah, which is like, okay, why didn't any of the other Myojin give powers to other people?
They didn't have ulterior motives.
Really seems like Knight's Reach is the coolest one of all. But anyway, so from there, basically, I think Toshiro was like, he had a bounty on Hidetsugu. Is that how? I don't know.
I think Hidetsugu was like a basically, if you want to think about it in terms of like mafia, he was the head of one of the families. Like he was the leader of basically his own crime group, and so Umezawa was hired by a rival gang to take him out, essentially.
And instead of doing that, they just like make a new family. They're like,
yeah, they just become bros.
They just like slit their hands and do like a blood pact, and they're like, sick. Now we have a new family.
The Hyozan Reckoners.
Yeah. So well, it's pretty sweet. And it seems like it's them and some other people as well, which we don't really know a lot of information about who the other members of this group are.
Yeah, it wasn't totally clear. I assumed it was all of Hidetsugu's, posse. But I was a little curious what Umezawa was bringing to the table, because as I understand, it was just him. So it's like, hey, do you want to merge my band with your band and make a super band? Like, yeah, man, what's your band? Oh, it's just me.
It's me, but I travel through shadows. So, that's cool.
Huh? You didn't see me, did you?
I'm sure that he like lied about something and was talking up his like pull with the Myojin, because
yeah, that's what I was wondering, if he dropped the Myojin's name.
It's got to be. It's like, oh, Kanye is going to be on the label too. So like we did something together once. And Hidetsugu, he like worships this Oni. It's like the all-consuming Oni of chaos is like his patron dude. So they're like, hey, this seems like a good deal. Not really, because almost immediately Toshiro's like, and he like tricks his way out of the blood pact and like leaves. And so now all of them fucking hate him.
Yeah, I mean, obviously he was going to do that. But,
Yeah.
Poor Hidetsugu, he didn't know.
Yeah, but Hidetsugu is heartless, so what are you going to do?
It's true.
Yeah.
But some of the funny things for, I just had to read, because the thing they gave just a list of side quests that Umezawa actually did complete. So I just had to read some of these. He interrupted Moonfolk negotiations, which resulted in them trying to find and kill him. So I just wonder, like, what exactly it was. I think this is what they're talking about with the Nezumi, where there was, like, Moonfolk talking to a Nezumi that he stumbled upon and was like, oh, that's weird.
Right.
But then he gets captured by the Orochi, the snake people, only to break free, attack them, and send their forest kami back to the spirit realm. So that's what you were talking about, the green Myojin.
The Myojin, yeah.
And then he later gets captured by the Orochi again, and just escapes again.
Yep. Which, this might be an interesting... I don't want to jump to this part yet, because through a lot of the stuff that's happening, one of the side quests that actually becomes the main quest is that Michiko like teams up with Toshiro somehow. I don't know.
Yeah, I wasn't totally clear on how that happened, and I didn't read all of Betrayers of Kamigawa. So.
I think a lot of it was just that she's a princess, and he wants any sort of. He wants everybody on his side. He wants his fingers in all the different places, so he can like, maybe it'll be helpful to have a princess on my side at some point. Let's help her out.
So his motivation makes some sense, right? It's hers that I was a little sketchy. Why she ended up turning to some street thug.
Yeah.
Maybe she heard good things about the Hyozan Reckoners, maybe.
Yeah, the new thing with Hidetsugu. It kind of seems like he might have a name for himself, and maybe she just needs some help because she needs someone who can move quickly, quietly, without her dad knowing, I also think. She's kind of doing this without him aware of the situation, right?
I think so, yeah.
Or I guess at this point, she doesn't know that he's horrible yet.
Yeah. I mean, so the other thing to mention about her dad, Konda, is that most of the humans, or the Gawa, thought of him as their only hope because he was indestructible because of the thing he stole. He was like the only one that could fight the Kami one-on-one and live to tell the tale. And so he would, whenever he would get into combat with them, he would win. And so the humans were like, he's our last chance. It's our Emperor Konda. Meanwhile, it was him that's kind of fucking them the whole time.
Yeah.
So he's also not just playing the role of, I don't know why this is happening. He's also playing the role of the superhero, our last hope to save the world kind of thing.
Yeah.
To save the galaxy.
What a fucking
So
dick.
she probably thinks her dad is that person, right?
Yeah, either that or she feels like there might be some funny business. I'm not really sure. It's important to know that Toshiro and Michiko are working together. Uh-huh. And through some of this, and I think she must know about the Soratami kind of influencing her father in a certain way because he like Konda also becomes very paranoid of something happening to him or people finding out about it. So it's like, like you were saying, veils and veils of all these lies he's telling everyone, trying to hide what he had done. Because at some point, Toshiro takes his group of the Reckoners and they go to Minamo, which is the like school for all the moonfolk at the Soratami, and basically they attack it and destroy it and kill a lot of people. And that's when Hidetsugu like basically brings forth his all-consuming kami of chaos, eats a bunch of stuff. That kami ends up dying, and Hidetsugu's like, oh my god, my god has died, and he eventually, on a side tangent, goes and worships the Myojin of Night's Reach, and then eventually becomes the new kami of consuming chaos, which we have seen in spoilers.
Right, so he was an ogre, and now he's one of the demons, the Oni or whatever.
Yes, in present day. Okay. That's why he's still alive.
That makes sense.
Which, if you haven't seen the card, it was spoiled a while ago. Hidetsugu devouring chaos. He's this ogre demon now, which happened in the last story.
All right, but brand new Oni of Chaos aside, I guess the stage is now set for the next chapter, which will include exactly how the partnership between Michiko, daughter of the betrayer of Kamigawa, and Umezawa, the random brigand, how will they save the plane?
But I think that means it's time for a beer break. This beer break is brought to you by our patrons over at Patreon.
That's right. You're already supporting the show just by listening. But if you want to support the show even more, the Patreon is the best way to do that.
And when you become a patron, you get an exclusive invite to our after party, which is a mini episode recorded immediately after this one where we ramble on about non-magic things.
Plus, you get to vote on which one of us you like more by buying me a beer.
Or buying me a beer. So go to patreon.com/arenaregulars to vote on your favorite host right now.
All right, so before we get back to the trials and tribulations of the Kamigawa realm, we got another beer up here.
Yep.
So this is Grolsch Premium Pilsner. I'm sorry, I was trying to pop the bottle because, You know how they normally come in a bottle with a pop top? That's like art on the can. And so I thought it worked the same way, but no, it works like a regular can, actually. I don't know if you figured that out. Yeah.
Yeah, bummer.
So when I first started brewing, I actually drank Grolsch exclusively to get the pop top bottles because I didn't have a bottle capper. So I would just have all these pop top bottles lying around. Eventually I invested in the like $15 for a bottle capper, but I have some experience with Grolsch just from trying to collect their bottles.
That's funny because I was literally thinking, man, I wish I had a bunch of those bottles because that'd be sweet. Because I've like,
right.
For syrups for cocktails, I bought bottles that kind of do that. But anyway, give us the specs on Grolsch. What's going on with this beer?
They make a really satisfying sound when you open them, too. So this is a Pilsner from the Netherlands. It's 5%, and it's a relatively recent beer. It's from 1615.
Yep.
Essentially brand new by Stiegel's standards.
Yeah, really brand new. That and Stella, which is our oldest beer, but...
Yeah, that was like the 1300s, I think.
Yeah, 1336, I think.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, Grolsch.
I can't help but notice that it's a Pilsner.
Yes.
I mean, I feel like it came before a certain beer that might claim to be the first Pilsner.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about that in a little bit, which would be kind of funny. But yes, I don't know if this beer was originally called a Pilsner or not. And maybe they have just adopted that name saying, oh, you know, it's just, this is what it is. It's always been like that. But in any case.
It tastes like a Pilsner to me.
It looks like a Pilsner. It tastes like a Pilsner. And it was founded in 1615. So
it's a duck.
So it's a duck. There you go. It's a Gawa.
Yeah.
Speaking of Gawa, let's get back into
that smooth transition.
The Saviors of Kamigawa Story is basically where we left off. So Toshiro and Michiko are working together, and she has, at some point, either she or someone told Toshiro, hey, all right, Konda has this thing. He's the reason why everything's going crazy. It's in our palace. You need to go steal it. Luckily, Toshiro is a master thief and can walk through shadows. So it was really easy. He just fucking went in a shadow, popped out in the throne room or whatever, took the disc and left.
She was definitely on to her father at this point because she was like, here's the thing that is causing the problem. Here's where it is. I know that you're a master thief. Go get it.
And he does.
Yeah.
Seemingly fairly simple. But around the time he takes it out of a ganjo, that's when Okagachi, the like king kami guy, freaks out and breaks into the mortal realm to actually do his own bidding and go find it. Because that's really what he's been waiting for 20 years, to be like, where the fuck is this thing? I can't find it. I can't get to it. But now it's out of its hiding place. And I believe in the Jukai Forest, which is where all the Orochi are. Which may be one of the times that he gets captured by the Orochi and then escapes because there's a fucking giant dragon lizard thing in the sky.
Yeah, eventually his kami just weren't getting the job done. He's like, fuck this, I'll do it myself. It's kind of like the classic video game story where the big bad guy could easily probably just do it, but decides to send wave after wave of ever-increasing enemies to level you up before the final fight.
Yeah, get you primed and ready.
So that was Okagachi's game plan here. You know, send some weaklings to try. They don't work, and then 20 years later, fuck it, I'll just do it myself. Once Konda's daughter is old enough to really take care of things. Yeah.
We'll go do that. So now Toshiro has basically done what he's going to do for our story. He stole the piece that we needed him to steal. And Michiko is finally with, I believe she's also in the Jukai Forest with Toshiro, and she gets to be with that which was taken.
Now, there is a kind of important thing to do with Toshiro, because if you'll remember, the Myojin that gifted him this power asked him to keep the war going. And so what he's done here is use her powers that she gifted him to stop the war, essentially, to put the plan in motion to stop the war. And she's pretty pissed about this. So the Myojin of Knight's Reach is not too pleased that they made a pact. I'll give you powers if you keep the war going. And he literally used the powers that was given to him to stop the war. And so the Myojin of Knight's Reach banishes Toshiro from the plane. So I don't know if we know what happened to Toshiro after that, but he is not in Kamigawa.
Yes. I think this happens possibly a little bit later, but Toshiro does get banished, and specifically banished to Dominaria, where Toshiro's ancestor is in early magic cards. So it's actually funny now because we've seen, as we were talking about Satoru Umezawa a couple episodes ago, this is an ancestor of Toshiro. However, Toshiro was pushed back into Dominaria, had some ancestors, and had this original...
Did you mean descendants?
That's what I meant to say. Yeah, descendants. Okay. He's the ancestor.
I was like, wait a minute. He had an ancestor in Dominaria?
He went forward in time, made ancestors back in time. No, sorry. Yeah, he had some descendants. So he went to Dominaria, had some kids, I guess, and then there was this old card, which was Umezawa. I can't actually remember his first name. But he was like a Grixis samurai back in like Legends or something. And that's where the seed for Toshiro came from. It was like, oh, this is part of the family. And then if you remember when we were in Dominaria a few years ago, we had another Umezawa who was a rogue.
Right. That made stuff unblockable if they had low power.
Which makes more sense with the shadow ability that you go into the shadows, you can jump around. And now we have another Umezawa who deals with sneaky people. So fun kind of long list of the Umezawas through the ages. But this is the second Umezawa. However, the first, like he's the grandfather of them all or whatever.
Right.
So in the story, we have Michiko is now with the Stone Sphere, which is the baby Kami, which is actually a 20-year-old Kami stuck in this thing. And it is that which was taken. What is it? It that was taken.
That which was
taken. There we go. And when it's united with Michiko, because they were both born on the same day, she breaks free of the Kami, breaks free of her mold, and she reveals herself to be Kyodai, who is this Kami. And basically has like a human form ish, kind of. I guess she breaks free. Sorry. So let me start over. So she breaks free. and then Michiko and Kyodai kind of form into one being. And that being's name is basically the Sisters of Flesh and Spirit, which is both halves of this one whole being. So they're kind of, because of the story and how everything was happened, and Michiko was born on the day that that was taken, was brought over to the human mortal realm. They were tied forever, and they're sisters, and they become like this basically super being that fucking exacts revenge on everyone that sucked.
Everyone.
Yeah.
So it starts by annihilating Dragon Snake Kami Lord. The immediate threat that's kind of rampaging through the world right now. So they take that down, but then they also then turn their attention to Emperor Kanda himself. So it's kind of like they kill both of their parents.
Yeah.
I guess. The sisters kill both of their parents.
Yeah. Which they believe, it's kind of like when they meld together, the Kami that was stuck in the stone has all these memories of living and, all this stuff. And it melds right into Michiko. And now she has all the memories of the Kami, and the Kami has all the memories of Michiko. And they're like, hey, dads suck, don't they? Yeah. And so they fly into the sky and cut off all the snake heads of Okagachi, who eventually turns into like a little garden snake, who's just like this little tiny thing. And it has two heads, and they pick it up, and they both bite off the head simultaneously and eat him. So it's not like blazes of... It's really brutal. It's pretty brutal.
Yeah.
And then they go to Lord Konda, and they turn him to stone, and then like push him over. So they kill his flesh and then push him over, and he breaks, and it destroys his spirit. Is kind of the idea, which should be like the torment of dying twice, kind of. But yeah, anyway, sisters fuck up shit and like save the world, and now the kami are like, yay, everything's okay now.
Yeah. We're not pissed anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they were basically like, hey, we didn't even really necessarily know what was going on. We just had our head honcho telling us to attack and driving us crazy.
Yeah. But through this, we have a lot of peace throughout Kamigawa. The Soratami, all the bad ones, got killed basically through that whole raid with Hidetsugu.
Oh no, Moloku died?
Yeah, Moloku died.
Oh, that's a
Yeah.
bummer. I liked that card as a kid. I always played
Oh,
the
really?
card. So it's like, oh, return an island to my hand to make a 1/1.
Yeah.
What's up?
So Moloku died. Mochi died through that. There's a couple other cool wizard dudes that died in that whole
I
case.
thought Mochi was immortal though somehow.
Maybe not through...
Did he get frozen and turned into ice cream? Is that
maybe.
that what
Maybe that. Or it's... I don't know. The Sisters of Flesh and Spirit fucking kill things that can't be killed.
they can do whatever
Right?
they want?
I don't know.
They kill immortal people all
Yeah.
the time. You're
Or
right.
I guess-
Kakashi, Lord.
Sure, maybe he was banished to like the spirit realm and could never come back, or you know, the essential. He's gone from Kamigawa, kind of. Although maybe not so much. We'll see. But that kind of ends our. They would be the saviors of Kamigawa. Toshiro, who we thought was a betrayer, became a savior. Michiko and Kyodai are also the saviors, while Konda was a betrayer and Okagachi also betrayers.
Right.
I guess. Who is the champions? Everybody?
Why
Everybody
not?
else? All the Gawa?
All the Gawa and the king.
And yeah.
Everyone.
So yeah, there you go. That's the Drunken Vorthos. That's everything that happened.
That is Kamigawa block.
Yeah. Just kidding. We have a lot more things to talk about. All right. So that is what happened, whatever. How many years ago was it? 2004. Or 2005 when all this stuff happened. Fuck. Man, I feel so old. And now we have some snippets about what has happened between those periods of time and the 1200 years where we're gonna end up in Neon Dynasty.
So I guess we lead off with basically Michiko's reign after defeating her father. She didn't want to call herself emperor, but she took over that role essentially by blood. And so she was essentially tasked herself with undoing all of the terrible shit her father did, was kind of her life's goal. And so what she faced, though, was kind of skepticism. Like, people were kind of afraid of her and very suspicious of her, because you got to remember, they were at war for 20 years with the Kami, and their savior was her dad, and then she partnered with a Kami to destroy her dad. So they were like, yo, what the fuck's going on? You partnered with our enemy and destroyed, like, our savior in their eyes.
It was a little rough, but like kind of through her life, like Kyodai is still around.
Yeah, I think they kind of unfused, right? They did the reverse of the Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah, exactly. They went back to their other forms. I guess in my mind, I keep thinking Kyodai is like a human lady form Kami, but probably not from what they look like in the picture of it that was
I
taken.
assumed he was a big serpent with a bunch of little dragon heads.
Probably. In all honesty, that makes a lot more sense. But maybe they're just like Michiko heads and they're not serpent heads.
Yeah, God.
Like a really weird, like a mask that looks like Michiko. Anyway,
Yeah.
so through that, I mean, it was a lot of like troubling times, but she did prove herself to be like a good ruler. And in her death, her constituents and the people around did eventually give her the honor of being an emperor, even though she herself did not want to be called that because of what her father had become. And and basically, in Kyodai kind of just like rules people for a really long time. She just like deals with the Kami stuff. And then through Michiko's heirs and everything, they just continue the Konda line of having.
And I think kind of the important thing Michiko did was basically reveal the truth about what her father did. So it almost brings shame, quote unquote, to her own family line. But that's how she got over this whole ordeal of people being suspicious that she partnered with the Kami to destroy Konda. She was like, hey, listen, that's the reason the war happened, was him. And so I had to do that. And so obviously at first people were a bit,
skeptical,
not receptive to that. Either they didn't believe her, or they were like, well, if your family line did this, why are we letting you rule still? So there were, everyone and everything in between, but eventually did, like you said, proved to be a great ruler and kind of was able to heal some of the damage that was done.
And then we'll get a little bit more into all the kind of lineage stuff that goes on with that in another section of this podcast here. But we have some side quests. Yeah. I like side quests. That's a really nice the name for these things.
Yeah, now we can take a break from all the realms gonna be, massacred stuff and all the legends and fate of the two people being born at the same time, and just get into like, what were other people doing at this time?
Yeah. So we do have a planeswalker. We have a legendary creature that we know quite a bit about, who's on Arena, but originated, I don't know if you know, from this set, who is Azusa, who is lost but seeking, which I thought was hilarious as a kid.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever actually seen this card in Arena. Oh. I agree, though. I loved that name as a kid too. Like lost but
she's
seeking.
butt seeking, like a butt seeking missile or something. But basically, that kind of is what her story is. She is a monk who travels like throughout the plane, and she's part of the sacred order of the Jukai Forest. And so she like, through the Kami War and after that, she just like literally going around writing in her diary about what's going on or what she sees. And eventually she just gets lost in like the Tendo Peaks, and she's just kind of gone. We don't really know what happens to her exactly. But her diary entries are basically sacred manuscripts that people hold on to.
Yeah, so she was just like during the war and after, just kind of walking around,
doing her own shit.
I just imagine her standing on like an open plains as all these farmers are getting massacred by all these ghosts, being like, farmers get killed by ghosts. Anyways,
I kind of imagine it like,
I'm gonna play 2 additional lands this turn.
Yeah. Just because like her diary entries are so important to these people after she's been gone, and it's basically like her last diary, I think, lives in this tree that's like, guarded by it's a tree. I don't know. It's in the spiritual forest. It helps people. I don't know what it is, but
right. So you said she was a monk of the Jukai Forest. Later, we'll learn that the Gawa get banished from entering the Jukai Forest. So she like left a secret diary in this forest that later nobody's actually allowed to go to. So it gets found much later than the rest of them.
Which kind of makes it feel like, not really, but like, I was thinking like, oh, what a weird thing. Like, why would you just like read someone's diary and it be like an important text? And then I was like, oh wait, but we have the diary of Anne Frank. Like, that's an important text in our society. Oh yeah, no, right. Diaries are kind of important about telling you the story about what it was like.
And in many ways, she was the first historian of Kamigawa. Like, nobody else recorded stuff. She was the one walking around recording everything. And even started like a society of historians, essentially.
Yeah. So, which is kind of crazy to be like, hey, by the way, we should write things down. Because also, once again, it's like important.
Might be important to remember.
You need people to remember things that happened, specifically that Lord Konda was a fucking dickhead, and that, avoid this in the future.
Diary 6, Lord Konda
is a dickhead. Now I'm just imagining if Lord Konda was like a kami, and he was an actual dickhead flying around, like...
Please ignore Diary 3, Lord Konda, our savior.
Yeah.
Our only hope.
Oh. But yeah, in kind of she spawned all these historians, and in this whole thing, they eventually, for this museum, basically a lot of the stuff in these stories that we're learning have these artifacts that are kept in the new Kamigawa, which is the Neon Dynasty.
Yeah.
And one of the pieces that she has contributed, she didn't contribute it herself, but her legacy is why this was created. And it's a kimono that has kind of pictures and stories of things that she had told that hangs in the museum, which is the historians that she kind of birthed into the plane.
And one thing I noticed, so from the world building video on YouTube, they were talking about getting some of these things right in Japanese culture and so on and so forth. They mentioned that they had to kind of redo a lot of the art that involved kimonos, because apparently if you wear the left of your kimono over the top, that represents someone who's not living, and people who are living put the right over the top. So I noticed that in this art, the left side of the kimono is actually over the top because it's commemorating Azusa.
Someone who's passed. That's really, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, if you haven't seen the world building video, I might link it below. It's like 30 minutes, but it's really fun to see. It's basically a round table of the people that made the set talking about how they got to the places they wanted to get to, and what kind of cultural influences they took, and how that changed their world building compared to the first time that they were here. Really interesting stuff. So go check that out. But you're right. Yeah, that's a cool piece. Another thing that we didn't mention is that we are breaking down these 10 articles to you, and each article has a different kind of long piece of artwork.
Right.
Longer than a normal Magic card would have. However, it's reminiscent of a certain card type. Jeff, it's on the tip of my tongue. I don't know what it is. What is something?
It's like a story or epic.
Yeah, something like that. It's like
They tell certain epic tales.
what's the word for that? It's like the I don't maybe a saga.
Oh yeah, it's a saga.
Interesting.
Yeah,
So it
yeah.
does look like they are giving us 10 sagas in Neon Dynasty. We're seeing the art in these articles. Beautiful, by the way. A lot of really cool ones. Some of them, as they did in Kaldheim last year. I don't want to talk too much about that, but some pieces weren't painted. They were actually made in like wood blocking and stuff, or carved.
Oh yeah, that one's really cool.
So same with this. We have some mixed media pieces that will be on cards that look like they're painted, but they're actually physical things, like embroidery and those kinds of things. This piece is a painted kimono. This isn't a real kimono, but
this one is clear.
Yeah.
That it's painted.
There's
or digital art of some
yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah, of some kind. But anyway, not to get too deep into non-story quote unquote things, but just cool stuff. It's always fun to see how they make this game, because there's a lot of fucking work that goes into it that you don't know about.
But now when you see the saga Azusa's Many Journeys that we're expecting to be in the set, you'll know the story.
Yeah, she had many journeys and diaries as well. One thing I loved about original Kamigawa was that they had these fucking sick dragons that didn't look like regular dragons we see in Magic. These were like serpentine ones that were like floating and flying.
Right, like very Eastern
Exactly.
mythology cult, like dragon.
Yeah, it literally looks like
the more European ones that we usually see in Magic.
Yeah, that seem more greedy. These ones seem more like they're friendly, like they give you stuff. They're more like something you would wish on, as opposed to something that's going to terrorize you and burn you.
And like they don't necessarily have wings, really. They fly, but they don't have like the big wing and the big body. They're, like you said, they're kind of serpentine.
Yeah. So I remember loving them a lot when I was a kid. Kokusho is the black one. It's still like one of my favorite Magic cards. And I literally play it in a Commander deck just because, I mean, it's a really good card in Commander, but it's also like
Yeah.
I specifically get the art from Kamigawa being like, I want it to be this one because this is the one I like. It reminds me of all those kinds of feelings and stuff. So
Yeah. These were absolutely iconic of Kamigawa.
yeah, so iconic that they were in Iconic Masters. I like
There you go. I could have designed that set.
Hey, look at that. But there's some really interesting stuff that happened between the like Kami War and where we're gonna be. Because we did, spoiler alert, we did get a preview of one of these dragons a few weeks back.
Yeah, so I think one of the interesting things to me, like that I didn't necessarily realize right away with Kamigawa, is that these dragons are kami. Actually, they are kind of these spirits, but they're different in the sense that they're protectors of their given realm, rather than being gods that these realms look up to. They're more protectors of that realm. And so in the Kami War, they actually decided to do their duty and protect the Gawa in the realms that they were from their brethren, the Kami.
That kind of means that, some of them died, and they did.
Yeah.
So we lost Yosei, who's the white one, who was guarding the city of Aganjo, which is, of course...
Kanda didn't come help him. He just let him die.
Kanda didn't fucking
right
help
outside
anybody.
his
Yeah,
castle.
fuck that guy. That guy sucks. He's a dickhead. That's the title of the episode. Konda is a dickhead.
Yeah, Kanda's a dickhead.
Drunken Vorthos, Konda is a dickhead. And then the green one, Jugen, fell when he was aiding the monks in Jukai, which is that forest we were talking about. And then Kaiga, was the blue one, died fighting to save Minimo, which is the Wizard Academy, which actually I'm pretty sure died from the fucking Hidetsugu onslaught with all the demons and stuff, which was kind of friendly fire seemingly, but hey, when those things happened, we do know that these dragons, when they die, they trigger. So
I was gonna say, man, it's lucky Okagachi wasn't there when Kaiga died, or the Gawa would have gained control.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so basically we're left with Kakusho, who's the black one, is still alive, and Ryusei, which is the red one. Or, sorry, Kakusho eventually died from trying to save the swamp. But Ryusei...
Yeah, he was like the lone survivor, essentially. Yeah. Basically, some Oni attacked the swamps, and that killed
Kakusho. And then everybody lost 5 lives.
Which I thought was a little oh, that's a bummer. All the other ones died defending their territory against the invincible Kami, and then he just gets a random different death.
Yeah.
Against a ostensibly weaker opponent, and then the red one just lives. But basically what happens is the Orochi, the snake people, they bring back Jugan. They figure out some ritual in order to reanimate him, resurrect him, bring him back to life. And that's a good idea. Jugan's not a bad reanimator target, if you can get him into your graveyard quickly and get a reanimation spell going. And so this wave of Oni that killed Kakusho, Jugan and Ryusei actually fought them off once Jugan had been resurrected. And obviously Ryusei is pretty much just unbeatable, as I'm learning here. He can just survive any amount of wars and just be fine.
I guess so.
But they fought off the Oni. They should have made his card a lot more powerful, that's all I'm saying.
It must be that Ryusei doesn't give a shit about the Aki and is like, I don't really care about saving these stupid goblins, so I won't.
Yeah, he was like, oh shit, man, I was totally busy, super swamped.
Yeah, super swamped. No, that's Kakusho.
Hanging out with Kakusho.
Kakusho got super swamped. Fuck, magic jokes, man. It's like magic dad jokes, essentially, is what that is.
Yeah. Well, there's a new podcast.
Magic dads? But because of this, Ryusei hatches a plan. hatches.
Oh.
And basically, yeah,
Foreshadowing.
realizes that, hey, maybe we need to like gather the remains of everyone, all the dragons that had died, and let's like start anew. Let's start over. And they basically just like put themselves in an egg, and they seal it in the heart of Boseiju, which is like this tree in the Jugan forest, who's like the best tree ever. It's the coolest tree. You got to check it out.
It shelters all.
Yes, it does. Boseiju who shelters all. You're right. So basically, the new resurrected Jugan and Ryusei decide to give themselves up and basically kind of die into this egg or sleep forever. And that egg is nurtured for about 50 years. And then there's 5 more dragons came out. Brand new ones that we get to see. We actually have Atsushi, the Blazing Sky, is the one that we have seen so far, which is the red one.
Right.
And they seem, you got a little bit more choices with these ones. So it's quite exciting to see them come back.
Just it always makes me think it's like, hey, you want to hang out? No, I'm busy. Oh, where are you? Oh, I'm at sushi. It's just such a weird name, like at sushi.
At sushi? Yeah, I mean, I didn't think about that until you literally just said it. So it didn't seem, it looked like a word that I was like, okay, it's one of the words that I will have to figure out how to pronounce.
It gives Red Dragon Roll a new meaning. That's all I'm saying.
It's true. Hey, we were talking about red dragons being a thing. 4 mana, 4/4 flying red dragons in every set. And this is one of them. Hey, another fucking red dragon. But I guess it makes more sense in this set than other ones where you're like, hey, here's another dragon. Fuck, okay. Innistrad, here's a dragon.
Yeah.
But so we're looking forward to some more of these sweet spirit dragons. I'm really happy that they were born anew, and then maybe we'll get some more later on. Just give me more of these. Maybe not specifically.
More awesome dragons.
Maybe not specifically the red ones, but the other ones. I love the other ones.
It's always nice to have like a white dragon or whatever.
Exactly.
Black dragons are always cool. So yeah, if you end up seeing a saga that's called the Dragon Kami Reborn, now you know what that's about.
Yeah, it's also beautiful. Ugh, it's probably one of my favorites.
Yeah, it's a really, really nice piece. So that leads us right into some of the different eras. So that's kind of stuff that happened right around the time of the Kami War, immediately after. And now we're getting into different eras that occurred between the Kami War, or last time we were at Kamigawa, and now. And obviously, it's been a long time. I think you said 1,200 years, right?
Yeah,
and so,
1,200.
And so we, as we do when we're looking back on time periods, we group them into pretty large but distinct eras. And so the first one of those is called the Shattered States era.
Doesn't sound good, Jeff. Doesn't sound good.
No, it doesn't sound great. No. I've already, if you see that chapter in your history book, you're like, uh-oh.
Ooh, I don't like this one. Yeah. So basically, this is after Michiko Konda has died. Now we're kind of continuing the line of like, oh, who's the next Konda? Who's the next Konda? You're the one who's leading us, and that's great for many generations. But there's a lot of like, over time, all these different people don't have the same, characteristics that Michiko had. She had to go through a lot of trials to understand why she wanted to rule a certain way. Obviously, people that you raise after that take some things for granted and maybe don't rule the same way. So slowly, there's infighting in this dynasty.
Right. It tends to become more about, holding power, more political than actually about ruling your people in the right way. Which we can almost imagine is what happened beforehand to Michiko's father, and then she kind of reset the balance, and then took us a while to get back there. But essentially, the Konda clan is maybe no longer fit to rule in a lot of people's eyes. And even worse, one emperor, she didn't have any offspring. And so it wasn't clear who should be her successor.
Yeah, because it's hard. It's like, all right, so she died because somebody fucking killed her. But like, all right, so should her brother be the one that takes over rule? Should it be her husband?
Right, someone who is still of the Conda line,
Yeah.
or should it be her husband who
Was picked, you know?
who had a bigger part in running the show so far anyways, maybe is better equipped to do it. Like, what's more important, the blood or the fact that he's, you know, been part of some of these decisions already?
Exactly. But also, like, you would think that the husband might be closer as far as ideals go with the person that picked them to be.
Right, yeah.
Of course, you know, maybe they had arranged things. I don't really know what their customs are.
I don't know much about
The
how
Aganjo.
weddings worked in Kamigawa.
Yeah, the Aganjo customs in that time for a mythical.
If it's historically accurate at all, it's probably like her cousin or something.
Yeah. Which makes sense why there's a bunch of fighting and people, you know, inbreeding or whatever. Anyway, so no one can really figure this out, and a lot of people died just because of this fight over this power that they were trying to obtain. Because once you don't have a clear successor, everything just fucking goes haywire.
They're basically two political parties, you know, the
Yeah.
brother or the husband.
Exactly.
They were at odds with each other.
And then at one point, the Yamazaki clan, which are the brothers who originally were like the Secret Service for Lord Konda, their entire lineage has continued for decades to be the Secret Service people for the Konda.
Right.
And so they get in kind of this squabble with a lot of the Kamigawan people, as well as these successors that we're seeing, who's going to be the next person. And there is a standoff in the throne room.
Exactly, yeah. So I do feel for the Yamazaki a little bit. You have to imagine that, you know, their loyalty is pretty much only to the Konda family. And now they have this decision to make of who they're loyal to. Is it the brother who is a Konda by blood? Or, you know, this husband who is... who was your previous ruler's, as you said, her sort of choice. It was her... She owed her loyalty to him in some small degree, and so you have to trust. Do you trust your loyalty to your previous emperor, or to your sort of family loyalty that you've held for generations?
Yeah. And so through all of this, just remember that Kyodai, the Kami, still around, doesn't die. So she kind of interferes in this like final decision, and she's like, you know what? Fuck the Konda. I'm going to strip you of all your kind of status. You are now regular, ordinary citizens. Fuck you. You can no longer.
It was no longer a royal bloodline.
Yeah. She's like, you ruined it. You ruined it. It's basically like when you and your sibling get in trouble by your parents. You're like, you know what? You're both grounded. And I don't care who did it, what was wrong. I don't fucking care. You both get punished for whatever happened.
I don't care who started it.
Yeah.
I'm finishing
it. You're done.
The classic line.
And Kyodai is like, you know what? I'm going to pick who the emperor is from now on based on their character and their merit. And that's what she does.
Yeah. And I guess, you know, you kind of threw to me with the standoff line. I didn't fully explain it. The standoff was basically there's one of the Yamazaki, I guess earlier in his heritage, one of his ancestors had challenged imperial decree, and that's kind of how their family got into this realm in the first place. So inspired by that, he actually assassinated the husband and then was going to kill the brother, but the brother was ready for him, and so that's the kind of standoff that happened, is the brother versus his head intelligence officer or something.
It's like a Secret Service agent.
Right. Like, I don't know who tipped him off, if he's the intelligence officer for the brother.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Which, if it was his personal guard or not. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's when Kyodai was like, yo, fuck this. Are you seriously, like... is this seriously what's happening? None of you rule.
So, but with that, I think we're coming into a beer break. So, you know...
Sounds like as good a time as any.
The era has been shattered.
Yeah.
But my thirst must be quenched.
Will Kamigawa recover? I'm worried, man.
I don't know. Probably because we have a new set coming, so I'm assuming that it's still around.
Zach, come on.
Oh, sorry. Build these suspense. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. Let's find out. Here we go. Third beer of the night. We have the original Pilsner. This is, pretty, it's crazy because we just drank a Pilsner from 15 or what, something. And this is the first Pilsner that was made in 1842. It's just, that's nuts.
There you go.
So this is Pilsner Urquell. It was made in the Czech Republic, and it is 4.4%, which actually, through the Silver Series, I think the lower percentage actually, you get some thumbs up because, I want this beer to be one that I can just chug, right? Or chug, but I just want to drink it all day. That's usually what I want to do with it. Through this, I thought I saw some stuff on the website, obviously about the best beer or the first Pilsner, or it's really great or whatever. But there's one picture that I thought was exceptionally hilarious to me, which I just sent you. Which is specifically talking about their tapsters or the people that pour their beer and how amazing they are.
Those are the worst pours I've ever seen.
So I just sent Jeff the picture of what the pours look like, and they're trash. They're like worse than Cheers pours. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they're really bad.
She's literally holding one up that maybe 10% of the glass is beer. Then like 40% is foam, and then empty.
Like, I just don't understand why you would tout that you're the best. And like on the website, all they talk about,
trust your tapster.
All they talk about is how important it is that your foam is so big to keep in the freshness and not have the alcohol destroy the beer. But I'm like, these are horrible pours. I would be fucking pissed. Like, throughout the entire
there
website.
There are 7 beers in this shot.
Yeah.
And not one of them is over halfway full of actual beer.
It's insane. I'm like, it infuriates me because
this lady got to half on one of her pours, it looks like, but I have a feeling that one settled for a bit, so the foam has turned into beer.
It's ridiculous. And I just can't believe that they chose this for their website specifically to say, look how great we pour beers.
They took like 10 photos. This was the best one.
Yeah, like, no way. No way. Every other beer on the thing is at least 3 to 4 fingers of foam. It's insane.
Yeah, at least.
It's crazy. So
and she's holding up the worst one. That's
the
funny part too.
It's like, it's just horrible. I've never seen something like this. Now it makes me laugh because they are claiming to be the original Pilsner.
Right.
And which, I don't really care where exactly it came from, who was the first person. There's a lot of people that claim that they're the first person who invented this thing, or this style of beer, the very skunky taste, whatever, all those things. To me, it still feels like we have New York's first pizza, whatever. Like, we have the bagels, the first bagels ever made in New York. I'm like, okay, I don't know. Are they good? Like, it doesn't matter if you're the...
Yeah. Or has bagel technology come a long way and you guys are just old school?
Yeah. Or maybe like, hey, you had a cool idea, but somebody did it way better than you. Sorry. I don't know.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like, that happens all the time.
I will say that the fact that this is brewed in Pilsen, Czech Republic, does lend credence to their claim a little bit for me.
Yes. So that's why I did think that Grolsch was like, all right, we are a Pilsner, so we'll join. It's easier to explain that to people.
Right.
But because...
Now that term has caught on.
Yeah, but because this Pilsner is made in Pilsen, the Czech Republic, and uses Pilsen water, which is one of the ingredients that they say is really important for a Pilsner, I would say, okay, I get it. But anyway, I could not help but just send you that picture of that beer. Anyway, actually, you know what? I'm going to put that on Instagram. Go to our Instagram. It's Arena Regulars, and find us to see the picture we're talking about, because If it matters, man. Like this, fuck this.
Yeah. You should know if you get served something like this, send it back.
Send it back.
Ask for a refund.
Yeah, jeez. All right. Anyway, that's my little spiel about Pilsner Urquell. But all right, Jeff, where were we? We were. Sorry, did you have something to say about
Pilsner? After the era of shattered states and the atrocious beer pouring of the tapsters, I need something to really, pump me up here. I need something happy to talk about. So why don't we move on to the era of enlightenment?
That sounds pretty nice. And with the era of enlightenment, we do see that there is a traditional tapestry that was made for the saga. I actually can't tell if it's a real tapestry or not. Maybe not.
It looks like it could be, right?
Yeah, but then like the wood at the top. Anyway, let's stop talking about pictures.
The wood at the top's not real.
That people can't see.
Let's have the radio show where we talk about pictures.
Pictures the whole time. Thank you for staying with us if you're still here. We might have lost all of you in our Pilsner talk. But Jeff, what was the era of enlightenment? Not like our
it's
not like ours, but like the one that for Kamigawa.
Oh, okay, yeah. So basically, after Kyodai banished got rid of the previous framework of the royal bloodline, it seems like, and went to this democratic process that we described right before the break. It seems like they ushered in an era of enlightenment, of peace and of prosperity. So, the arts really, people felt safe enough that, they could study art. They could be street performers. They could use magic, for entertainment rather than always for war. And so during this time, basically this was the main time when it feels like the quality of life really went up in Kamigawa.
Yeah, and interesting with that, with having a lot of the arts in the world, it also brought a bit more of like, not only is this a good time of peace, but also like spirit came into the inhabitants, not just in the people that were living there, but also actual spirits. Like the kami started becoming very friendly and started coming and living in the realm with the rest of the people. This is beginning this merge where the gates of the spirit realm and the mortal realm tends to blur a bit, and we're getting more like humans, but also whoever else inhabit Kamigawa are starting to live like in harmony with the kami.
Yeah, totally. Like they basically had these portals that just started opening up, whether that was because, the kami were opening them manifestly or just it was happening. Maybe it had something to do with Kyodai's presence in the mortal realm, like active, ruling of the mortal realm. Mm-hmm. Who knows? But basically, these portals started opening up, and like you're saying, like the kami would just basically be chilling with the Gawa, but not in the bad way that we heard about earlier. The last time the kami had to come to the mortal realm, it was to try to retrieve something and to wage war. And now they're coming as essentially as friends. It does sound like a few of them were a bit confused and, maybe they didn't open the portal and happened to go through it. And then we're like, where am I? Mm-hmm. And so might have been, regarded as slightly hostile just because they don't know what's going on. And so eventually what happened was the Jukai, who are essentially they were the monks of the forest, right? Mm-hmm. If I'm remembering correctly. Yeah. And they decided to kind of that the best plan would be to build these gates around the portals that had opened up to signify to the kami, hey, you're welcome here. Like, we understand that you whether you've opened these portals or they opened up for reasons by themselves, we want you to know that we welcome you into our realm. And so they teamed up with scholars from Minamo.
I've been saying Minamo, yeah.
As well as like just some muscle from the Imperial infantry to actually build them. And so they had this kind of alliance of the monks and the scholars and the infantry to basically build these gates that were saying, "Hey, Kami, you're welcome here."
And this is a big turning point in Kamigawa's kind of history because earlier when we were talking about like the Soratami and all these people, ultimately the Soratami were hoping that the land dwellers, because the moonfolk can kind of fly, the land dwellers would die off and the Soratami would rule all. And so
Right, it was a world domination kind of secret plot.
But also, in a sense, it is a big genocide plot. They're hoping to kill every other race and be the only race alive. And now we are coming into an age where all these different races are working together to bring this otherworldly race into their world and say, hey, you're welcome, come live with us. We want you here and we can work together. And this is really important as the huge difference between what Neon Dynasty is going to be and what the Kamigawa we knew was.
Yes, right. So in Neon Dynasty, we would, instead of having the separate factions all living in their respective areas, like the Aki lived in the mountains, for example, in previous Kamigawa, now we just have them all kind of living harmoniously together.
Yeah, which we're also going, as we're moving into the city realm with skyscrapers and things like that, it also mirrors the world that we live in now, where cities tend to be the most populated with different people from all over the world. Very similar experience we're going to have in Kamigawa. But this is the beginning of that. With the Kami coming in being the biggest difference. Is like, hey, we had this wall, now it's kind of breaking down, and we're going to blend together, which I like. And I like to pretend that the musicians and the artists were the ones that helped that a little bit. But
of course.
Yeah.
It's always the artists moving.
It's always it's always the artists moving these
except the performance arts. No, that was useless. But all of the musicians and artists, yeah.
All right, so now we come to a very important tale. Tale, is that right? Maybe. Anyway,
it's almost like a myth or legend or
something like that. I just thought tale was a little too cheeky. But anyway, so this is the teachings of the Corinne, which is essentially basically the story of why the Orochi no longer have legs.
Yeah, so I alluded to this earlier, that the Orochi had legs in Kamigawa. They do not have legs in Neon Dynasty. Let's find out why.
They don't. I don't know. It doesn't seem really that important. Like,
Yeah, so this is another side quest here we have. But basically, as I understand it, the Orochi lived in the Jukai forest. And they kind of, even before Gawa and Kami existed in harmony, they lived in harmony with the Kami of the forest. So I'm imagining that this forest is somehow an overlap between the mortal realm and the spirit realm.
Which would make sense because the Jukai monks are the ones that help bring them over, so sure.
Right, so they that's why that was where their expertise came from. But eventually the Orochi, the snake people, they did the human thing where they wanted to build their city and keep building it up, and they kind of pissed off the Kami that lived in that forest. It's, I don't know if we have specifics, but I'm imagining, they're chopping down trees to build their temples and whatnot, and the forest Kami are like, whoa, what's going on here? We're no longer living harmoniously. Let's just put it that way. They had differing goals on whether to preserve the forest or to build their own city. And so basically the Kami, who up till that point had been giving powers to the Orochi, it's kind of like, hey, you're our buddy and we're essentially gods. Here, have some power. They took that away in a heartbeat, basically. Now the Orochi were just snake people with no powers, and they were kicked out of their homeland. So they had to find a new place to fit in Kamigawa.
And basically to get their powers back, or to be kind of come back to who they used to be, the Kami made a request that they thought the Orochi would never, ever accept. They're saying, hey, all right, so we will give you your stuff back, but you got to lose your legs and your arms. And they're like,
Right.
all right, well, legs and my arms. That's a lot, but you know what? I'll do it. The Orochi are like, you know what? We'll take that. And the Kami were so strucken by that. They're like, oh, okay, well, we didn't want to take all of them. You can keep some of them. That's fine. And so that's why they just lost their legs and kept their arms, because the Orochi were so focused on trying to get their powers back that they would have given up almost seemingly everything that they had at that point. Because then at the end, if you don't have any limbs, what are you, just a fucking snake? Yeah, you're just a fucking snake.
You're just a snake.
You're just a fucking snake. And they were willing to just be a fucking snake. So the Kami are like, all right, well, you can keep your arms then.
And so one of the funny things at the end of this little excerpt that they say is like, it's unclear how much of this tale is true and how much of it is Orochi fable meant to impress their young with the importance of reverence and dedication to the Kami. But the thing is, we know that it's true, kind of, because we do know that they used to have legs. Now they don't. So they did lose their legs somehow. And, I mean, this is as likely an explanation as any.
Yeah. Whether it's because they were so gracious to give up all of their limbs.
Sure. Yeah.
Or the Kami were like, I don't know. And they're like, I don't know, my legs. And they're like, okay, we'll take your legs.
The way the Orochi tell it is like, oh, yeah, they asked us to give up our legs. And we're like, we'll give up our arms, too. And they said, oh, no, you don't have to do that. Oh, that's so gracious.
So, yeah, that is the story of that. But hey, you know what's a bit more exciting than that? Is I am interested.
The only thing
sorry, go ahead.
Did want to mention quickly is that because of this Orochi pissing off the Kami, I just remembered this now, so I had to jump in.
Do it.
All Gawa were banished from the Jukai forest because the Orochi kind of came into their turf and tried to build their big city. And so later when Azusa's... Remember, this all happens after Azusa, and so that's why they couldn't find Azusa's diary earlier, because all of the mortals were banished from the Jukai forest after the Orochi pissed off the Kami that lived there. And so the historians had to get special permission from the Kami to enter the Jukai forest, and eventually that's when they found Azusa's last diary.
Yeah, makes sense. But hey, I want to know more about the modern age. I want to know how they went from being seemingly archaic to like super advanced, crazy, high-tech motorcycles, neon stuff.
Yeah, it's definitely kind of cool.
It is. And it does kind of seem to be a little bit of this arms race between, like, strangely enough, the goblins are like working on their inventions. Now, we always have goblins that have some sort of invention thing, but they never seem to be the people pushing the envelope on how great, how well they can make stuff. That doesn't tend to be a thing that we see in Magic lore, but in this world, they are.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So basically, up till this point, and you might have even noticed this just in the stories, but the people who had the Kami's blessing were kind of, the emperor, or they were the people who had lived with the Kami for generations, or like
the super princess killer of all.
Yeah, or you're some sort of warlord or something. You had to be doing the Kami's bidding, like you were Umezawa, trying to act on behalf of a deity. And so basically you had to kind of be a person of power, of means already, in order to have any of the blessing of the Kami. And so otherwise you didn't really have access to magic. And so one of the factions that kind of got boned by this was the Aki, the goblins. They just, for the most part, they were granted very little access to magic from the Kami. They were given a little, but it sounds like for whatever reason their local deity, maybe the Red Myojin, wasn't too generous. But what that led to was them developing essentially ways of focusing very little amounts of the kami power into much greater magnitudes that could, do more serious work. So because of this necessity to keep up with everyone else who was getting more help from the kami, they invented ways to take a little bit that the kami had given them and magnify it into much greater results. And so that was kind of the first innovation that came out of the mountains and the Aki artisans that was one of the two key factors in the technology that was developed on this plane.
But then it was boosted greatly by anyone who was kind of granted these kami powers. And as you were saying, they're continually trying to match whatever the kami were making. And this arms race pushes things further, as we've seen through, I don't know, whatever else happens in our world, that the harder people are working to make new technology, the other person's working harder to make the next one. And that's going to push everything into hyperspeed. And of course, we are, 1,200 years in the future. So it does take quite a long time. But we do get to a place where we have all these crazy technologies, partly from this magic and partly from this real world innovation.
Yeah, and what ends up happening at some point is that essentially the Gawa kind of learn how to draw energy in the same way that the kami do, without it being given to them by the kami directly. So instead of having to get their magic or their energy through devotion to the kami, they've figured out ways to do it directly. And then, of course, now we have all these technologies that were built up in order to magnify this energy and stuff. And so they're kind of doing it on their own. Now, it doesn't look the same as the way the kami used the magic. It comes out in the form of what we would think of as technology. But basically, exactly because of this arms race you were talking about, that, people with less access to the kami's magic had to keep up with the people who had access to it. That's what kind of leads us into essentially the technological revolution that happens in Kamigawa.
Interesting. It does seem like if energy came back, that wouldn't be the craziest thing.
So I get 3 MC squared counters. Or more correctly, M squared C squared plus P squared PC squared, something like that.
Okay, totally. I'll take your word for it.
P squared C squared. Oh, it's P squared C squared plus MC squared.
Okay, perfect. That means absolutely nothing to me, but I'm glad that you're on my team. But basically, this is why we have skyscrapers everywhere, and like all the motorcycles and like the neon lights and everything is through this push. Now, we have one last thing that we need to talk about as the world has rapidly changed into this new cyberpunk space that we are excited to see more of in the future. But we did talk...
Lots of neon lights.
Lots of neon lights. We did talk about a very special tree that is still around, luckily, in the heart of Tawashi, is Boseiju, who shelters all.
Shelters all.
And, well, spoiler alert for what we're about to say, still shelters all.
Yeah, so despite the fact that the snake people got kind of boned for building into the Jukai forest, people decided to go for that now. And so their capital city, as I understand it, is Tawashi, which is, what you're seeing in any of the art pieces you might see of a big city. It's like probably the most developed city in Kamigawa, has the skyscrapers and all that. And that's been pushing into the boundaries of the Jukai forest. So obviously, once again, that caused a bit of commotion from the kami and other people who believe that the forest, shouldn't be chopped down to build more skyscrapers. But eventually they kind of just built they built an understanding that was basically, hey, we won't push any more into the forest if you leave us alone. Like, I don't know what the kami really got out of this, because it was like, hey, we won't chop down more of your trees if you fuck off. And it's like, they're like, okay, fair. But I guess that's kind of just how these things go, right? Like, if you don't agree to this, we're going to cut down more trees.
Yeah,
so you got to agree to it.
It just seems like the regular thing that like progression, like it's gonna happen, and like
environmentalists are at a disadvantage in the fight,
even if they're magical. Stuff. Yeah, it doesn't really matter. So, but the one thing no one can touch is Boseiju, this tree. Mm-hmm. You can build all around this one tree, but you have to keep it because apparently it's like the oldest tree in Kamigawa. You know, it's a national treasure. You can't get rid of this thing. Mm-hmm. It's really important. And so they're like, you know what? Okay, well, if we can't build into it, we'll build up. So then they start building these skyscrapers. They go up and up and up. And as that happens, Boseiju's like, hey, I'm supposed to shelter all. And Boseiju grows a bit taller and gets higher than the highest skyscraper. And then the builders are like, all right, well, I want to be higher than this fucking tree is in the way and it's ruining my views. So let's make a bigger skyscraper. So,
I can't charge as much rent if this fucking tree is...
Exactly. So they make it a bit higher. And Boseiju's like, you know what? Fuck you, I'm getting taller. And it just, every time, it has to be the tallest thing always. And it's like this crazy magic tree, man, that like holds Azusa's diary and like all this stuff. But it does eventually... Everyone was like, you know what? Just, you know, the tree's going to overshadow you no matter what. So just let it. And it grows really big and tall and has huge branches over everything and like protects the buildings that it is surrounded by.
Yeah. I love this like little story because, you know, I just love the idea that Boseiju shelters all and it's like, hey, my job is to shelter all. I'm going to keep going up. That's something I'm not sheltering. Let me go up.
Yeah. And I like the idea of, you know, we see this story in particular feels very similar to just the life that we live, where there's construction all over the place and like the
especially
city.
In Toronto.
Yeah. And in
always a new skyscraper that has to go up.
Or something or some building that you cared about that got knocked down to be built some condo or whatever.
Right.
So it was nice to have this kind of mythical, natural, pure thing that could always be taller than whatever man-made build was there. So I enjoyed that. So I'm excited to see what that card is going to be or what will represent that. In this, I guess it will probably be this saga, which I hope that they also make a land that is Boseiju, but we'll see.
I wouldn't even hate just a Boseiju reprint. But.
That's true. Just a reprint would be great. But in any case, we are now officially primed for Neon Dynasty. With this and everything that we've seen, we now live in this city where Moonfolk, Nezumi, humans, and Aki alike all live together with the Kami floating around. And we no longer have this weird genocide thing where we're trying to kill every other race or like separate each other. We as if I live in Kamigawa.
Yeah.
They all live harmoniously, or you know, there's squabbles and things, but they work through them and live in Kamigawa together.
Yeah, I'm curious where the Neon Dynasty story's gonna take us. Actually, It'll be fascinating.
Which, if you want to know, check out next week's episode because we're going to have the scoop on that one right there.
What? 2 Drunken Vorthos in a row? That's too good to be true.
Oh, my God. But, Jeff, we're not even done. We still have one more beer to get to. So,
that's right. And I haven't been paying attention, by the way, to which of these I like better. So I have to take a moment here to actually compare.
I mean, is that different than any other episode we've ever had?
I forgot I was going to have to rate these.
Yeah, classic. But with that, Jeff, it is last call. Let's grab the last beer before we rate them all.
All right. So for our last beer of the night, we have yet another European. Well, maybe not. We're cheating a little bit on this one for our European beer night, but up next we have Belgian Moon.
Jeff, I'm pretty sure it's Blue Moon. Blue Moon is what you're
Nope. Looking right at my can, it clearly says Belgian moon.
Yeah, but just for everyone who isn't in Canada, everywhere else it's Blue Moon.
Yeah. Well, sorry, but we're living in Canada here. So.
Yeah. It's just like, for whatever fucking reason, they decide to market things to Canada completely differently than the rest of the fucking world. I don't get it.
I know. It's just like a few random things, too. Like KD or whatever.
Yeah. It's so weird.
It's like, it's not a product that only exists here. It's a product that exists across North America and probably across the world. But it's only called that here.
Well... actually, no. If you want to hear my rant about KD, you have to listen to the after show. So go to our Patreon to sign up for that. But Jeff, what's going on with this Blue Moon?
Okay, it's a Blanche Belge, which means Belgian white. And then below that, it even has to inform us a little more. So maybe they were just they thought Canadians would be confused. They're like, okay, if we'd said Blue Moon, Belgian white, Belgian style wheat ale, they wouldn't understand. So we'll call it Belgian Moon, Belgian white, Belgian style wheat ale, so they really know what they're buying.
And then at the bottom it says wheat beer as well.
In brackets, Belgian.
Belgian. Made not in Belgium.
Brewed in North America, right at the top. Just had to say Belgian as many times as they legally could, despite it being brewed in North America.
So, Jeff, where is this beer brewed? Just,
North America. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Nowhere special or anything, maybe it's in a cool state or...
I don't think it's from a cool state, no. Yeah.
Wow.
I don't know all my states, but... I do know this one, so I would say it's not a cool one.
Well, I mean, it's right in the middle. It's perfectly square. It's...
Sure.
No?
Well, nothing's perfectly square.
Whatever. Fuck you. All right. All right, it's a rectangle or whatever, math guy.
I know the football team sucks.
Hey, we might get Aaron Rodgers next year. All right. Which means we can almost get there, but we'll just shit the bed. Anyway... It's from Golden, Colorado. Come on. This beer is made by Molson Coors.
Oh, Colorado. That's where you're from. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, okay.
Forgot for a second that you were from there.
It's another Belgian beer in Colorado, which means I already have something. Yeah, it's happening. But yeah, this one, I'm just going to read it. You're not reading it. It's 5.4%, so it's the heaviest beer of the night, and it was founded in 1995. So this is a fucking
heaviest and most recent.
It's a little baby beer. I'm older than this fucking beer. What are you, a fucking baby? What is this? Yeah. Go back to the 1600s if you want to impress me. Just kidding. Right. We'll have to get to that right now. Jeff, It's rating time. I'm excited for this.
Yeah.
So as always, we're going to rate our beers on a scale from silver to silver. Silver means macro beer and silver means also macro brew. All right. So we're doing this on silver 4 to silver 1. The idea being that when we get all of our silver 1s together, we will eventually have a bracket of the silverest beer that may become gold or platinum depending on how much we like it. So it is important for us to go through and talk about our favorite beer from this selection because it's going into a bigger tournament in the future. So, it's a big deal. So starting with, we like to go worst to best just to build up the drama. So who needs to go first? Me, you, I don't know.
Do you have your answer ready?
I know what my silver 4 is. Like, I knew it.
All right, then why don't you lead us off?
All right, so silver 4, the worst beer of the night, the one I was like, wow, I really was let down by this fucking thing. You might...
So I already have one in my mind, and I'm curious to see if it's the same.
Okay, so my least favorite beer that we had today is Stiegl. Silver 4. Stiegl's my silver 4. Wow, it's definitely not yours, which is interesting.
It was not mine,
Wow.
actually.
All right. So that's
I was wondering if we were like this or like
I
this.
think
And,
we're
I just decided to do more visual cues because that seems to be the theme of this podcast.
of this episode, yeah. So it seems like we're on different pages. So Jeff, what was your favorite, or sorry, what was your least favorite Silver 4?
So for me, it feels weird saying this too, but the one that just didn't hit for me was Grolsch. I gotta say,
Okay.
Grolsch was the one that came in a little flat. I mean, not literally. But,
Well,
we know that Pilsner Urquell is the king of selling you a flat beer. So.
yeah, apparently. Which coming into I'm just going to go straight into my Silver 3 because it riffs off of what you were just saying, which is Grolsch. I was very
All right, at least you didn't like rate Grolsch as your number one, and I was like, oof, that
no,
was trash.
It was a happy like bump up from Stiegel, but I really didn't love drinking Stiegel at the beginning, and I was like, oh, I really hope things would get better than this, and they did. Whether that's because I had more beer or not is up to interpretation. But what's your Silver 3?
This is really close for me, but I think I have to give this to Belgian Moon, personally.
Wow.
I know. It's just like, for me, wheat ales or wheat beers are already a tough sell. I find them pretty tough to brew properly. And so, like, a silver wheat beer, it's kind of delivering what I expect from it, which is not much.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. I'm really
like, I think it gets by on being different from all the other silver beers. But if I'm comparing this to like wheat beers or just which one I actually want to drink, I don't think I would choose this one. I would choose one of the other ones. This one was really close though. This is why I needed to like push back because I wasn't sure how my 2 and 3 were going to be ordered.
Yeah. Well, tell me what your 2 is because I think I know what I'm going to do.
All right. Well, my 2 is Stiegel.
Okay. Interesting. Ooh. Okay. All right. So I think. Wow, this puts me in a really rough situation because I was in a certain place, but now I'm like, do I do it?
There's no metagaming. Just whatever one you actually enjoyed the most.
I know. That means I didn't come in thinking that this was going to be the case, but my Silver 2 is going to be the Pilsner Urquell.
Classic.
And so
now you're rating it not because of where it's from. I just have to say you're not allowed to care about where it's from.
No. No. Actually,
you're like, ooh, it's from Colorado. I guess that's my number 1.
So I picked Blue Moon as my number 1.
Wow, he's gonna write the American.
and this is I wanted to tell you my thought process actually when I was literally talking to Catherine before we were doing this. What I thought I was going to pick. From blind looking, haven't tasted them in a while, and I don't know if it's because I've had a few beers before the Belgian Moon, or the Blue Moon. I will order Blue Moon at a bar often enough, but almost exclusively it has to have an orange. Almost always, if someone gives me a Blue Moon without an orange, I usually get a little irritated, and it's not the beer I want to drink. Now, it might be because I had a bunch of beers before this, and it tastes orange enough. I can taste the orange in it. It's
definitely orange. Yeah.
It has orange and coriander is like the big notes from it. I don't know if that's the reason why I'm actually liking it a lot more right now, but I was expecting to like the Pilsner Urquell the most. Just because I've had it before and was really surprised. Like I remember getting it randomly with her stepdad, who's like a huge Pilsner guy. He loves Pilsners, and Stella is like one of his favorite beers. And anything that's like lager or Pilsner, that's what he wants.
Stella did do well in our silver series.
And so, and and it seems like he has a really good taste for these beers as well. He can really tell if it's not the one he likes. And this is one of the ones he really likes. And I remember tasting with him and being like, oh, I do like this one. And so I was expecting to like it the most. But having this one right here, I was like, you know what? I think I like this one the most. Crazy enough. I thought this might have been one of my least favorites, actually. So
you know what's funny is I thought my favorite was going to be Grolsch going in. Because I was like, I've had that the most. So I would probably just identify with the taste the closest. But now I wonder if it's almost had the opposite effect, that like I expected good things from it and then was just it came in really flat. I just remember taking that first sip and I was like, ugh. Not for me.
Yeah, sometimes. I mean, like, that's literally what I felt with Stiegel, was like, ugh, this is not good. I don't like this.
It's why it's so fun to do this, though, because, like, some beers that you just have marketing thoughts about or, like, you know, just different trained opinions on, you come and you do this one, you're like, oh, I actually don't like Sapporo, you know, I really do like, you know, I like Bud Light a lot more than I thought I did.
Yeah, like... And you literally have to be like, you know what? I can't fault myself. It's not a blind taste test because that's really putting the pressure on.
Right.
But
right. So those things still do play a factor, but
they still have a little bit of a factor. But most of the time when we go into these things, I expect myself to like something a certain way, and I tend to be different. And like and the reason we do this is to be really open and hope that what we thought originally was wrong. Because why would I care to continue to tell you that this is the best Pilsner or the original Pilsner? You know, like that's not I'm not sponsored by them. I don't care, you know. I'm trying to tell you what I think about these things.
Spent like 10 minutes making fun of their beer pouring.
Exactly. So. And their website is stupid and ridiculous. But they make a good beer. And that's literally what I was thinking as we were drinking it. I was like, this tastes good.
While we were making fun of it, I'm like, it's pretty good, though.
It's pretty good. It's a good beer. It definitely has a completely different taste than Grolsch. It is funny that like we were saying, oh, you know, maybe Pilsner Urquell isn't as good as Grolsch because it was older, but like no, it totally is these Czech ingredients, and I do like the one. I think just if I go back or you go to a bar or like in the LCBO, I'm probably going to pick up a Belgian Moon or a Blue Moon before I pick up this Pilsner. So that's just how it is.
I think this might have been one of the Silver Series where we differed the most, too.
I really think so. Like, we weren't even... Did we agree on anything? No.
Usually we have, like, the same bottom two and the same top two, and maybe one of those is in a different order or something.
Yeah. So, anyway, in this case, if you become a patron of the show, you can see our list of beers and all of our ratings and all those things. But with this, basically it comes out to, because Pilsner was your number one and my number two, it will get the most points, and the Pilsner Urquell will move on to the next round.
Yeah, and it looks like Blue Moon is going to come in second here because my number two was your least favorite.
Yeah.
And it was your number one. So.
There we go. But Jeff, I hate to say it, but it is closing time on the Silver Series.
I was having so much fun.
I know, but luckily we have an after party, so if you want to check that out, go to our Patreon. I'm going to plug that one more time before we plug ourselves.
If you haven't heard, we have a Patreon.
Just by the way, it has content. Do you want to go there? Yeah. Anyway, if you want to talk to us about how we plug our Patreon way too much, you can go to Arena Regulars on Twitter and Instagram and bitch at me, which is totally fine. I encourage it. You try to make me upset.
Oh, he loves it. He loves it.
Yeah.
You know, tell him that the way that Pilsner Urquell tapsters pour their beers is the correct way. You can also look for us on Arena under the username Arena Regulars Podcast. You can't really say anything to us there, though, but you can complain internally when we top deck the perfect card.
Yeah, because we definitely will. If you want to talk to me personally, you can find me at Zulberg. That's Zeulberg on Twitter and Instagram. But Jeff, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter, BLUESBREWSMTG. So that's Blues Brews MTG.
Also, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, on iTunes, anywhere that you are listening to this podcast right now. Just give us a follow, give us a like, go to our YouTube channel, watch our draft videos because we have a lot of fun with that. We're going to get some more out of some more of those out soon, and so keep an eye out. We really just want to, engage with everyone and have an active audience. But it is fun as well. This has been the Arena Regulars,
reminding you that Konda's a dickhead.
Good night. All right, that's fine.